Hello. So this is a new an idea to solve quadratics. Remember, quadratic is something that is raised, has a term that's raised to the second power. So this is what makes it a quadratic. Okay. Um, Notice a few things about this. We have A, B, and C. A, B, and C can represent any number we want. And then we still have the x's. And so the x is equal to this relationship. Okay, and yes, we have in class there's a silly song that kind of goes along with it, but we'll give you the quadratic formula to work on over and over and over again. So let's take a look at a couple just examples. So let's say we had 2x squared plus 3x plus 4 equals 0. This would give me an a value of 2, a b value of 3, and a c value of 4. And then we would plug into that, but I just wanted to show a couple examples. Let's say we had 3x squared plus 5 equals 0. That means my a value is 3 and my b value is 0, my c value is 5. What about if we had, say, something like 4x squared minus 2x equals 0. My a value is 4, my b value is -2, so on and so forth. So there's all kinds of different routines that will work with the quadratic formula. This video here, if you wanted to copy and paste it and watch the video, it has a little silly song of how to remember this quadratic formula. Okay, but let's put it into practice. So we know that x equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's take a look at this. Remember, my a value goes along with my x squared term, so this would be a 1. My b value goes along with the x term, so my b value is -4, and my c value does not have a letter that is attached to it, so my c value here is -2. So we can plug into our formulas. We get x equals, there's a negative, so remember we have the negative there, and then plus or minus root something squared minus 4, and I'm going to highlight a few of these things where we're going to plug in some values. Okay, so my a value goes here and here. My b value, we plug in here and here. And my c value, we plug in here. Okay, so we're going to plug our numbers in to where we think they should go. So notice that my b value is -4, so I get -4. And then I get -4 squared. Notice I put that in parentheses. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then I get my a value, which is 1, and my c value, which is -2, all divided by 2 times a, which is my a value. So now we've plugged in where certain things go. So let's go a little bit further with this problem and start cleaning it up a little bit. So a -4 means I have a +4. Plus or minus, that means there's going to be 2 answers. That plus minus means 2 answers will be a result of this. So -4 times -4 is +16. And then this is a whole bunch of multiplication. So -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times 2 is +8. And then all divided by 2 times 1, which is just 2. We can go a little bit further to start making this look a little nicer. So this is going to 8 and 16 add together to give me 24. I want to highlight, let's just break this root 24 down. 24, I wanted to break it down to a perfect square times another number. So we'll use 4 and 6. The reason I'm using 4 and 6 and not 3 and 8 or 2 and 12 is 4 is the biggest perfect square. Okay, remember this is going to break down to 2 root 6. So I get 4 plus or minus 2 root 6 all over 2. Now we can go ahead and start reducing things. And the things we're going to reduce are only, I got it right there. I want to reduce anything outside. If all of those are reducible, let's reduce. So it looks like 2 is going to work on all of those numbers. So, I'm going to make it purple. That goes 2, that becomes a 1, and that becomes a 1. So my answer is x equals 2 plus or minus 1 root 6, or just root 6, all over 1. And so this is my answer. This is 2 answers because we have a positive and we have a negative component. We have 2 plus square root of 6, and we also have 2 minus the square root of 6. We leave it just like that. We don't need to go and calculate what the square root of 6 is on a calculator and get a decimal approximate. Okay, so for these, we truly could try and factor this. Our factoring method, if there is a 1 right here, we're going to go 6 times 1, so we get a positive 6. All of my signs are positive, so both my terms. What two things can I multiply together to give me 6 would also add to 5, and it would be 2x and 3x. 2 times 3 is 6. 2x plus 3x is 5x. We could plug it in, and we get x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6, and it's equal to 0 still. I look at my first two terms, so I get x and x plus 2, and then I have a positive sign. I can factor a 3 out of both of those, so I get x plus 2, and it's still equal to 0. So I'm going to get x plus 2 and x plus 3, and those are equal to 0. And let's solve those. X plus 2 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0, so we're setting each part equal to 0. Subtract 2, so I get negative 2, and subtract 3, so I get negative 3. Okay, well, would the quadratic formula work with this? So would x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a give me the same answer? So I know my a value is 1, my b value is 5, and my c value is 6. So let's see if we can plug these in. So I get x equals negative 5. Remember, there's a negative sign already there. If this was a negative 5, then it becomes positive because negative, negative. Plus or minus square root b squared, which is 5 squared, so put that in parentheses. That's a 5. And let's clean that up a little bit. Minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. And let's clean this up. X equals negative 5 plus or minus 5 squared is 25. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24, all over 2, because 2 times 1 is 2. And let me bring this down a smidge. X equals negative 5 plus or minus 25 subtract 24 is 1. So I get the square root of 1. What's the square root of 1? Yeah, the square root of 1 is 1. So I get 2. So then I'm going to go negative 5 plus 1. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4 over 2. So that gives me an answer of negative 2. That checks to that answer. And then I'm going to go negative 5 minus 1, so that gives me negative 6 over 2. So that gives me an answer of negative 3. And there's my negative 3 answer. So both methods work. Sometimes factoring might be faster if you can see it right away. Sometimes the quadratic formula is the only way that you can go about solving it. This is the second problem. So things that we would have to do here is perhaps we would subtract 20 because we want it to be equal to 0. And then we could say, okay, well, everything is divisible by 2. So I'm going to get x squared minus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. And then let's try and factor it. Okay, so I think all of these will factor. They might or might not. So let's put a 1 out front, so that gives me a negative 10 when I multiply negative 10 times 1. In order to get a negative number when multiplying, I need a positive and a negative. So what factors of 10, 1 and 10 are true of 5, would add up to 3, or negative 3? So I have a positive 2 x and a negative 5x. If I combine those together, I would get the negative 3x. So let's plug those in for the negative 3x. So I get x squared plus 2x minus 5x minus 10. I'm going to factor an x out, so I get x and x plus 2. The negative sign comes out, and the negative 5 comes out. Change the signs. So then I'm going to get x plus 2 and x minus 5. They're equal to 0. So let's go ahead and solve each of those. Set them equal to 0 and solve them. So I'm going to get an answer of negative 2. And I'm also going to get an answer of positive 5. Well, let's do the quadratic formula to see if we get the same thing. So let's make sure that we understand that this needs to be equal to 0 before we do it. Okay, my quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so that's going to give me x. Oops, let me list my a, b, and c's. My a value is 2, my b value is -6, and my c value is -20. So x equals -6, because remember there's an original negative, plus or minus the square root of -6 squared, put that in parentheses, minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a, so 2 times 2. Clean it up, so I get +6 plus or minus -6 squared is +36. -4 times 2 is -8. -8 times -20. What is that? 160. All over 4. Clean it up. 6 plus or minus. That gives me root 196. I will tell you that square root of 196 is 14. It's one that we don't really go over, but if you used a calculator and went square root 196, you get 14. So then I'm going to get 6 plus 14 is 20. So I get 20 over 4. 20 over 4 is 5. So there's one answer. That's the same. And -6 minus 14, that's going to give me -8 over 4, which is going to give me -2. And -2 checks to be the same answer. So again, you could try and do it either way. Sometimes factoring might be faster. Sometimes a quadratic might be better. Let's see on this last problem. It's equal to 0. Let's see if we can factor it. So I'm going to put a 1 out front. So let's see, I have x squared plus 4x minus 6 equals 0. I multiply -6 times 1, so I get -6. So I know I have a plus and a minus. So what numbers of 6, 1 times 6 or 2 times 3, would any of those, one being positive, one being negative, add up to 4? Well, originally we said this was prime, okay? But let's see what the quadratic formula will do to solve this problem. So I get x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. My a value is 1, my b value is 4, and my c value is -6. So let's plug in what we know. X equals, there's a -4, okay? Remember that's +4, so when I plug it in, it becomes negative. Plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Clean this up, so I still have a -4 out front. 4 squared is 16. And then I'm going to get -4 times -1 is -4. -4 times 6 is +24 all over 2. So I get x equals -4 plus or minus root 40, because 16 plus 24 is 40, all over 2. And then I want to break up square root 40. I want it to be the biggest perfect square times another number. So I'm going to go 4 times 10. And that's going to break down to 2 root 10. So I get x equals -4 plus or minus 2 root 10 all over 2. And then remember, everything that's outside, not under the radical, if we can reduce it, let's reduce it. And it appears that 2 works. 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes in there once. So my answer is -2 plus or minus the square root of 10. So that's actually the answer to this problem. Notice it didn't factor here, but the quadratic formula did indeed give us an answer. Okay? All right, so I don't know where this one was. That was just an extra one on my page, I guess. So let's have us work on page 163, and let's have you use the quadratic formula. And I bet you if we did 4 through 12 all, and use the quadratic formula on all of those, give it a really good try, and I'm happy to go over all of the answers for you in tomorrow's video. I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.